Hello and welcome again to an episode of Pirate Players Then and Now podcast. I'm your Hampton football enthusiast, TJ Jones, with a very special interview with Dr. Timothy S. Frazier, a prominent member of the football team during his time on campus. Welcome, Dr. Frazier, and thank you for taking a few minutes to tell us about your experience. This podcast is designed to expand on great things players do both before, during, and after their time on campus. And having seen and read a little bit more about you and what you've done after, no better individual to talk to than yourself. So thank you for your time today.
It's my pleasure, man. I'm flattered that, you would reach out to me and given all the great things that, my teammates have done.
Well, let's get right to that. So one of the things wanted to know about is kind of how you ended up at Hampton in the first place. Kind of what was your draw?
Yeah. So junior year was probably my best year in high school. And so I started getting recruited after my junior year, but the recruitment was more of your Fordhams, Hofstras, Towson, and things like that. And then Hampton was the first school that, historically black college that offered me a scholarship after that year. The coach, the offensive coordinator, Coach Hill, Donald Hill, he was actually coaching for the CFL Stallions, the Canadian Football League, in my sophomore year in high school, and he watched me throw this game-winning touchdown in the big rivalry game at the Ravens Stadium. And so, excuse me, at the CFL Stallion Stadium as it was at that point. And so he kept his eye out for me, and then he came back and offered me. So that was my first look at Hampton. And then so I'm like, okay, well, what's up with Hampton? And I'm looking, and at that point, they're winning the championships. Right. And so I was like, oh wow, all right. Well, definitely Hampton over Morgan, who was like 1-0. I mean, they weren't winning anything. That was on the list, certainly. And then they brought me down for a visit, and it was Battle of the Bay. And man, and like many of us, when we get down there on campus and see it and, just feel it, right? Like that HBCU experience. And, it was just no turning back at that point. Like I was like, yes, this is it. And, I'm in.
So the whole thing sold you, huh?
Oh yeah, man. They knew what they were doing. The lady that showed me around campus looked like Vanessa Williams. And I just was like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I'm coming.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. How did this happen?
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah. So that sold me. Joe Taylor, Coach Hill. I just, loved everything about the place.
Awesome. And I should have asked you originally, where were you from? Where's home? Where was home at the time?
I'm from Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay. So you were getting a lot of interest, but not necessarily from as many HBCUs. Hampton found its way onto your radar.
Mhm.
Okay. So you end up at Hampton, obviously recruited to play quarterback, sounds like, which was great. Right. And so what was your experience like freshman year and so forth? How did all of that go? Hitting the ground running?
Ooh, no. Oh man. Hampton was tough, man. And it was tough. I always say that, football made me a man, right?
Mhm.
And it started when I first got on campus, like in that first summer as a freshman. And that camp, it just the pace was different, the size was different, the strength of everybody was different, and you can either sink or swim. And and I'm getting the hell beat out of me. in summer practice. I mean, I'm on a scout team, and these, guys are just destroying me, running through me. I actually afternoon, one evening, I went out on the waterfront and I called my mom, and I was like, "Mom, not sure if this is this right for me. Like,
Mm.
this I am in pain right now." And she, told me, to hang in there. She said, you always figure everything out, and you'll figure this one out. And, thankfully I did, and got stronger and stronger every year. The program will do that to you if you stay with it. And so after freshman year, things started to kind of click, and, I figured it out. But I had great mentors, Roy Johnson, Tavius Cash. They were before me, and helped bring me along as well.
So it sounds like it was a lot of challenges on the field, just kind of physically transitioning from the high school speed to the college speed at the time, and Hampton at that point had fully transitioned to the MEAC. What about in the classroom? How was the classroom transition? Was that easier?
But that was easier for me. Fortunately for me, before coming to Hampton, I had made up my mind that I wanted to be a doctor.
Mm.
In Baltimore, my father would always say, that, son, you're going to be my doctor, and my brother's going to be the lawyer. And but he would always get us these hard jobs, because he wanted us to be strong and play sports and everything. So we would do landscaping and construction and everything else under the sun, like, blue collar.
Mhm.
And finally, like, I was like 14, and I said, Dad, like, if I'm going to be a doctor, I at least got to know what a hospital looks like, right? And so he got me a job at Johns Hopkins as a janitor.
Mm.
And so I was cleaning floors at Johns Hopkins and taking out, the trash there. And when I was doing that, I would get in trouble because I would go into patients' rooms and get the trash and sit there and talk to them. Right. Right. And so my manager, he took me off room clean detail and put me in this red bag detail. So, and most people don't know what this is. In a place as big as Johns Hopkins, the red bag waste is kind of like the hazardous waste. And they have a gymnasium sized area where all these red bags go.
Cool.
And so I was on that detail, and and so we basically had to load these red bags into these canisters to take them to get incinerated. And I'm doing this with the enthusiasm of a 14-year-old in the hospital, jumping all in there, loading the bags, stepping on blood, and stuff is squirting out. And I'm seeing needles and things like that. And I'm like, this is cool, right?
Oh, this is
Like, that was my reaction to it. So I go home, I tell my mom, and she is freaked out, right?
Mhm.
And she calls the hospital. What are you doing having my 14-year-old son working in this environment like that? And then the next day, I got transferred over to the vice president's office at the hospital. So basically, I was like the assistant to his assistant for the rest of the summer.
Mm.
Made a good impression. At the end of the summer, he told me I could have whatever job I wanted next summer. So I got into the operating room. I was stacking the ORs, and that's when I met Ben Carson.
Alright.
And so I would see him around, and I would stock his room. And his nurse, Janet McIntyre, talked to me as a young kid and hooked me up with him. And I got to shadow him for a week. And we had lunch one day. And so after that, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon, right? Worked at Hopkins every summer. And so I came into Hampton knowing that I wanted to be a doctor. That made the education part easy for me because I had a line of where I wanted to go and an idea of how to get there. You got to get great grades, right? So yeah, I started out very high on the GPA list. My GPA started out first semester 3.9, and then, as you get things added on, starting quarterback and then alpha, and then, other things on campus, I ended out at a 3.5, but good enough to get in. And so yeah, that was kind of my start with education. It started out well, and then it ended well too, but just there was a lot more on my plate.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you add things to the plate, right, you have to prioritize things. Becoming the starter quarterback, when did that happen in your process?
That so I redshirted. I did not play at all my first year at Hampton. My sophomore year, that which was my redshirt freshman year, I played for the first time against Delaware State. I got in when Octavius Cash got hurt, and I actually got conference rookie of the week. Had a great game that game, and we beat the heck out of Delaware State. I started the next game, didn't have as great a game. Cash got back in, and so I was kind of played on and off the rest of that season. And then junior year, my junior year, redshirt sophomore year, is when I took over the job for good after that.
Hey, it sounds like you had a really good time, and quarterback has to have confidence in a lot of folks around them, both line and receivers and pretty much everybody. So what was your best memory, on the field memory, I should say?
I would say probably homecoming junior year.
Mm.
We beat South Carolina State. I remember that 31, I want to say 31-23. And I was conference player of the week that week. I think I threw for about 260 and a couple touchdowns and ran for one. And that was a great one because it was a homecoming in front of everybody, and I had just crossed alpha, so I was like throwing it up to my brother in the stands after every play. So that was a very memorable one amongst a lot of memorable games.
Sounds like and worthwhile to mention. So you end up going through and finishing, and I think you said, gotcha, and staying in to get a master's, which was an extra year. So did you stayed on campus? Was your eligibility was done, but you stayed on campus a little while, or you had a little extra eligibility, or how did that work out?
Oh, yeah, so I after graduating, which my with my senior year in 4 years,
Hmm.
had an extra year to play football.
Right.
So
Oh, because of the red shirt. Right.
because
Right.
of the red shirt. And so I was a little too late, and my initial thing was to do a chemistry minor to try to have play that extra year and be in school that extra year, but it was too late to declare it. So I got a master. I started a master's degree in medical science, which is like a post baccalaureate program to help, people pass the MCAT and get into med school. So that was already my track. So I figured, why not? So I did the first year of the master's while I played my senior year on the field. Unfortunately for us, every year I was there, we took second place in the conference. They won championships right before I got there and right after I got there. So, I for any of my teammates and guys who play with me that, see this, I do take responsibility for that, guys. It is my fault, and, it's all on me, definitely.
I don't
Alright?
think they're worried about it.
You'd be surprised at homecoming. But so, yeah, because like, my senior year, that year, we playing A&T, and, um, I got hurt earlier in the year, a few games before that, so the gentleman behind me, Princeton Shepherd, was starting, and, I came in that game in the championship while our offense was stalling, and came in through a touchdown to bring us back to within one score. And then we're driving down the field and running the ball well, but both my running backs ran off the field hurt. One limped onto the field hurt. So I'm like, all right, we can't run the ball, but I got a single coverage on our best receiver who is outside. And so I switched them up, basically audible to a
Hmm.
fade route on them. I throw the ball up and my guy is under it. He's about to jump up and catch it, and he trips on the DB's feet. And the DB kind of just he was cooked, but he just caught it like a punt in the end zone, and the game is over. Game losing interception in 2003 for the conference championship. Yeah, tears as high as they go, as low as they go.
Well,
Uh,
and I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Because football teaches a lot of lessons, right? In life, right? You have to have
right,
some resilience and all those things. It certainly sounds like it's still vivid, but you have not let that define you, because after that you graduate, you move on, and afterwards, it doesn't sound like you were ROTC, but you end up in the Navy, if I'm not mistaken.
right, right. So I followed the footsteps of my cousin, Dr. Aaron Bates. He's 10 years older than me, and he was a football star at Towson, and he played safety for them. So I followed his footsteps. He went to Towson, played safety, and joined the Navy after he got into med school. And so I was like, okay, well, that's the route to go, right? And so once I got into med school, I applied for the Health Professions Scholarship Program, which is the Navy's scholarship program, and got that. And so there, I was commissioned into the United States Navy when I started med school, and that's a year for a year of commitment.
Well, so what med school did you end up going to? I didn't want to skip that part.
University of Virginia. I
Oh,
was
okay.
accepted in the University of Virginia medicine.
Awesome. So then you ended up that transition and did your time in the Navy. How long were you in service?
9 years.
Wow. Not 9 years. I'm sure there were lots of lessons from your time at Hampton that were transferable to some of that, because we always talk about transferable skills from sports, and I have no doubt that some of that was present in that experience as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Hampton, Joe Taylor, big part of that. The lessons that, he taught about being accountable, you know, is probably the biggest thing in my life, in having integrity. Those are probably the two biggest things that, I hold myself to and I preach. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. And, always be there when you're supposed to be there. He drilled those things into us, and that, certainly carried over into the military because, and I put that into my young sailors. You don't have to be perfect at the things you do, but if you say you are going to do something, you better try to do it, right? And you better give it your best to get it done. And, you just don't flake on things. And so that message hit home, and it hit home with the military as well.
Certainly, accountability is something that we know that coaches try to instill in their players as they develop leadership and other characteristics that go along with that. And so we're glad to see you're an outstanding example of what can happen when all these things come together well. And so you finish the Navy experience, and now you're practicing in, I believe, the Maryland area, correct?
I am. Yeah. Well, my main office is in Ellicott City. I'm currently in Frederick, Maryland at my Frederick office. We have three other offices, and one in Northern Virginia, one in Owings Mills, Maryland, and one in Laurel, Maryland. So, yeah, five offices around the state in Northern Virginia.
And your practice area.
Oh, yeah. Oh, orthopedics. I am an orthopedic surgeon. I specialize in general orthopedics. My practice in particular specializes in medical legal medicine. And so we treat patients that are associated with like workers' comp injuries and auto accidents, slip and fall type injuries that have a legal claim. So we treat the medical part, but we also work with your legal team, the patient's legal team, to serve as expert witnesses and do any legal reports that they may need to help them, with their case.
That is important. The last thing, a couple things I just want to touch upon. One, I'm glad you had a chance to kind of explain some of your connection and experiences. You certainly played with a lot of great players, I'm sure, individuals that you enjoyed being with. Any particular, I know you mentioned a couple, like on-field mentors that you want to shout out? I always like to know who you're. I'm sure there's more than a few, so you might get in trouble doing this. But that's why I opened the door.
Well, first one is an obvious one. It's going to be Patrick Cheatham. Patrick Cheatham was my left tackle. He started out as my right guard in his early years. And then, in his, I believe, junior, senior year, he moved over to left tackle because he was by far our best offensive lineman and handled that transition wonderfully. He didn't give up a sack his entire senior year. I never had to worry about my backside. And he was also my roommate. And so he protected me on campus as well. So he's been always been an amazing figure in my life, steady. He's raising wonderful young children now, and both of them are high level athletes. So he's always been an impressive individual, and you know, that's my guy.
Okay. All right. Hey, listen, that makes sense.
And he was offensive lineman of the year in black college football our senior year.
They, hey, that sounds like a very reasonable selection, sir. That is a good selection. For a quarterback to pick an offensive lineman makes perfect sense. So, with that, I do want to ask one last thing. And as I mentioned at the top, you chose to be a blessing to the university, specifically to the athletics, as noted at homecoming. And not so much the amount, but I'm interested in kind of what led you to do that. I mean, that is an important thing, but not everybody, you know, is led to do that. So for those who might be thinking about doing that kind of thing, what led you to do that?
Yeah, so something me and my wife talk about. My wife, Laura Frazier, Lala. Um, she we are philanthropic. And we, look for good causes around Baltimore City and other areas. And so, but then the when it came up, it was like Hampton, right? That's the obvious choice. That's the thing that's had probably the biggest influence on my life outside of my family. And so I, talked to them about making a pledge and so yeah, we worked that out. And I think that I wanted to also do that because seeing for fellow players, right? Like seeing someone that actually take that step. I think that's the first, part of it, right? Like, and it certainly, does not have to be, what I donated. I mean, that's on my Instagram. People, have seen my donation and everything in my pledge. But, but just, starting somewhere with whatever you can do. I mean, that's the key to it. And because if
Mm.
it's $100, if it's $50, you can afford to donate something back to that program. And I just, wanted to, if I gave $100, then people may say, oh, well, you're a doctor. You can afford that. Right. Like, so, I mean, I wanted to make it something grand that, you know, people can see it and say, you know, all right. And I want to expand upon that. My initial donation was $50,000. And this year I plan to expand upon that and up my pledge to a significantly higher amount because I am fully bought in.
Well, while I have nothing directly to do with the institution, as an alum who stands next to you, I am thankful that there's individuals who want to lead the way. And that's an important thing, as you mentioned, because it helps encourage everyone else to do whatever they can do to be supportive to the institutions and entities that they care about. In your particular case, in my particular case, it's the ones that have poured into us and that have helped to make us who we've become. So I'm very thankful, and I wanted that to get out there also. And very specifically, I wanted it to be clear that you, as a former athlete, have had success in life and and attribute some of that to your experiences on campus as a member of Hampton University's football program, because a lot of these young men are there now trying to understand what the value long term is going to be. And you're a good example of what it could be down the road. So thank you for that, Dr. Frazier. Appreciate you and appreciate your time today. Anything that we left out?
No, I mean, we hit on everything, that I think is important. You know, it's all good. We could talk for days, but we don't have it. So, all
Well,
right.
definitely, I appreciate you and the work that you did both on the field during your time, exciting as it was, and then what you've chosen to do with your life subsequently that is leading the way as an alum, because that has a lasting impact as well. So thank you so much for that. This has been TJ Jones, your Hampton football enthusiast, Pirate Players That Are Now podcast with our special guest, Tim Frazier. Take care.